Okay, so one thing that I did notice while I've been running is that in transparency mode, there's a lot of wind that goes into these here microphones. So it makes it quite difficult to hear your surroundings. So that's something to note. Not great in terms of transparency mode. I think if you're not using these to run, it's pretty decent. But again, if any wind hits this, then yeah, it does sound pretty muffled and not really good. Haven't come out yet, so that's good. So I just reseated it, which probably doesn't help the tusk. Sound so far is not bad. Okay, so got done with our 4-mile run, and what's the verdict? The verdict is that I got these for $100, and that's probably what they're worth, $100. I wouldn't really pay more than them, but I think it's a pretty good alternative if you're looking for something that's for Android. I will test these out also, and on a like Microsoft Windows PC test, and also connect it to an Apple PC and see what the call quality sounds like. Okay, we are now on my work laptop, and we want to test if the sound quality is good coming from the Sony Linkbuds S on connecting to a Windows PC. Okay, we are now testing on the Sony Linkbuds S, and I have one of them in my ears and the other one I just don't have it in there. So yeah, testing out what it sounds like when we're connected to a MacBook Air. This is what the sound is like using an iPhone connected to the Sony Linkbuds S. So an additional thing that I've noticed is that I've been using this for a couple days working. The audio quality is quite good in listening versus the Apple products on a Windows PC. So that's something that I'm also noticing as well that may sway me to keep these, because the transparency mode is pretty good. So right now I have it in transparency mode and I can hear my voice pretty well. I usually just put in one bud for when I'm talking on calls. From listening to the recording, it sounds pretty great. So yeah, I think overall, if you're using these for conference calls or what have you on a Windows PC, they might be your best bet in terms of audio quality when you're talking about wireless earbuds. Not including this, which is the Jabra Steel, which I have a review on that as well, so check it up in the top right corner if you're interested in that. But this one's pretty good in terms of quality as well as working with something that's a Windows interface. But the audio quality for this was also great on all the devices, whether it was a mobile phone, whether it was a Windows PC, whether it was a MacBook or an Apple product. So something to take note of is that when you're integrating or creating something like this, or a wireless earbud, make sure that you're creating drivers and good audio drivers for all products, not just the primary ones that you're using. Make them cross-compatible between Apple products, Windows products, as well as Android products. What I would say is that you should definitely buy these types of products and test them out to see if they work particularly for your ears, and yeah, see if you like them, because it's tough to know just buying it, hearing other people's reviews. Everybody's bodies are different in terms of their ears, size, fit, what's comfortable to them, and so on and so forth. Oh, and something I didn't mention before is that these are kind of tough to grab. So when I'm holding this, it's kind of tough to like hold onto and place directly into your ear. And with the touch capacitive buttons, a lot of times I'm just pressing the button a lot when I'm putting it in my ear. The Beats Fit Pro were a lot easier to not grab because it's a physical button that you actually press, whereas these are kind of tough to, and they've slipped out of my hands quite a bit, and the material that like the case is made out of, it's kind of slippery. It does have a little bit of texture to it, so it might need a little bit of like, I don't know, oil and grease from my hands to get it a little bit dirty, to get it a little bit more grippy. There's too much wind that I hear when I'm in transparency mode. So like
an extreme amount of winds. And I'm not sprinting or anything like that. When I'm walking, it's fine, but if you're going on a run that's faster than like 9 minutes a mile or something like that, then yeah, it becomes quite annoying just to hear whoosh, 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 whoosh. And then also similar to the Powerbeats Pro, I was having an issue when I was running with them where I would hear the silicone tips make noises when I was running with them in my ears. I didn't get that with the Beats Fit Pro, so that's something to note, is that those definitely seem better for running, and these don't seem to be like that, or to be for that. Again, I mentioned that there are 2 microphones instead of 3, so I imagine that's why it becomes difficult to do noise cancellation from the wind.
I'm going to turn on some ambient sounds to see how much it removes from the earbuds. So playing now. So this is pretty loud. I have it on transparency mode, so I'm basically trying to talk over it, but the microphones are amplifying it in my ears. So this is with the MacBook Air all the way up, and I gotta turn the constantly in. Okay, so that muffles it a little bit, but I can still hear a lot. Okay, so talking about comfort-wise, they're pretty comfortable, I would say. They may not be the most comfortable for people, because what ends up happening is this piece right here is kind of like it's really flat. So if your ear canal is not flat right there, which I don't think most people's are, I think it's pretty like curved. So I think it can be a little bit tough on people's ears long term. However, when thinking about these versus maybe the Beats Fit Pro, I think these are a little bit more comfortable just because they are lighter, and not necessarily because the design of them is much better. It's more so just they're lighter. So these are only 5 grams, so it's 5 grams and then 10 grams total. Overall, sound quality is pretty good. I think the touch sensitive portions are okay. I always like the physical buttons better than the touch sensitivity, and I imagine in the cold it might be tough. If I have gloves on, it might be tough. All these different things. Or if the gloves aren't like finger touch compatible, then I might have issues with that as well. If I were saying these were $100 versus like, I think these get 6 hours of playback time with ANC on, and yeah, that's probably in line with all of the newer things nowadays, but it's definitely on par with the Beats Fit Pro and with the new AirPods Pro 2, but I would probably say that those are probably a little bit better of an option if you're using an iPhone specifically. Now, that's the other thing. That's one thing that I really like about products with the H1 chip in it, is that it can read your text messages, and you can hail Siri to ask questions like, what's the weather outside and stuff like that. Versus this, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. So that's probably one thing that I would say is kind of a bummer. And yeah, the overall fit and finish, especially this case is pretty nice. I think the size is pretty good too. It charges via USB-C, which a lot of people will like. It kind of feels a little bit cheap in terms of like the close mechanism and like what the actual materials are made out of. Not dissimilar to the AirPods Pro or the Beats Fit Pro, but not nearly as premium as like the Sony WF-1000 XM4s. I think those were a little bit more premium, but I think the lids on these are always a little bit cheaper. But so this is probably on par with like what's in its class. They come in this kind of like tan-ish gold color, and yeah, I kind of like them. The voice quality of these are pretty good with the microphones, I think, and I think the listening quality is pretty decent as well, and the noise canceling is pretty good as well. So overall, for $100, if you're paying that, I'd say these are well worth it, especially if you're using an Android phone versus an iPhone. You can hook up to Alexa, but I didn't see a way to hook up to Google Assistant, which is kind of goofy. You can also change the sound settings to be like left where you do volume control, or you can do playback control, or you can do the ambient sound, and then a quick press for like opening your favorite music app. So that's something that's pretty nice, but the one issue is that I want to be able to do touch controls where I can change ambient sound on and off, and I want to be able to also control volume, and I also want to be able to control playback. So if it's paused or playing or skip a song or skip back a song. So with this, you can't do all three of those. You can only do two options. So I guess you would do ambient sound and play, and then I guess you would change the volume on your phone, which I find very annoying. I would want to do all three of those like I can in the Powerbeats Pro, but again, the Powerbeats Pro does not have noise canceling or ANC, so there's that. But yeah, I would say these are well worth the $100. You get nice EQ settings, and I think I've been using the excited one. And there's also speak to chat. There's changing the ambient sounds where I can change it to like 10 to 20, and then I can go to 1. And I found that going to 1 was pretty good in terms of like blocking out the wind noise, but still giving me some traffic noise when I was running. And then you can also change it to focus on your voice as well. And then you can do speak to chat. So essentially all your music will pause if you're speaking, but if you're singing along, it'll pause whenever you speak, basically. That's something that's interesting too, is that you can switch the Bluetooth connection quality to be the priority of sound quality versus the stable connection. So that's something that's interesting too, is that you can change the differences between that. So that's something that's nice, is that for these you get the customizability that you may not get in an Apple product. These are really good value, especially refurbished. But again, the Beats Fit Pro refurbished are also $100, and then the AirPods Pro are also $100. It's sort of like waiting for those AirPods Pro 2 to come down in price so that I can see what those are like. So yeah, there you are. If you have an Android phone, then it's probably nice and good value for you. And yeah, they're nice and light, and the sound quality is good, and the noise canceling is also good, and the transparency mode is also better than a lot that I've seen. So the only issue is that if you're running a lot and you're using these, you probably won't want to use them in transparency mode. But yeah, that's my review of the Sony Linkbuds S. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.